Now in today's video, we're going to be running through my team selection, my transfer plans, and of course my big decision who I'm going to captain in game week 36 as we look to make that final push towards the top 5k. Now before we dive into today's video, of course if you do enjoy any of the content that you see on the channel, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as we are now going to try and hit 15,000 subscribers before the start of next season. Obviously there's a long way to go to that, but I think with the end of this season and pre-season, that is definitely a possible goal. So of course, if you do want to become part of this journey, then make sure you are hitting that subscribe button. Let's start off then with, of course, our score from game week 35. As you can see, a very tidy score, a marginal green arrow. Considering we took a -4 to get Mbeumo in, I feel it has absolutely worked wonders for our team. It was, of course, going to be a big gamble. We knew that with the -4. I was very much expecting a red arrow this week. So to come away with a 200 kind of rank increase, hey, I'm not complaining at that. I think that's pretty decent considering the position we're in, considering the -4 we decided to take as well. I think it's put us in a really good position heading into this game week. Unfortunately, Mikalenko came away with a 0, so it didn't work out. But of course, going with the Mbeumo captain kind of just covered us off a little bit. The other big boys that were 100% plus effective ownership as well didn't do too well. Obviously, Marmoush with a blank, Salah with a blank, Isak with 9, but he was only around 105 at my rank, so didn't do too much damage overall. But as you can see, everybody else kind of a little bit disappointing it with the big differentials that I obviously called would do quite well, that obviously helped me through this game week. Bowen and KDB absolutely smashing it for me this week. Obviously, I didn't feel too bullish on KDB in terms of captaincy, but I definitely said I fancy him with his minutes and the fixtures coming up. I don't think he is a player that, obviously Pep is just going to drop like that. So overall, pretty decent week. Like I said, we took a -4 to come away with a green arrow. Anytime you do that is definitely a positive in my books. Now let's move on to my transfer targets, the captaincy choice for this week, and then finally my team selection. Now starting off first, let's take a look at the betting data provided to us by Rob T FPL, an absolute legend within the FPL community. He's obviously, done some absolutely incredible things this season, providing us with this data, not only for the Premier League, but also for the Champions League if you play UCL Fantasy as well. But looking at this game week, it looks very sparse for clean sheets. So my ideal recommendation probably would be to go with a free back, probably someone from City, probably a Brentford defender, and maybe if you've got a Nottingham Forest defender, they're probably going to be your best bets in terms of a clean sheet this game week. Obviously, if you've maybe got Sessegnon still, or potentially Robinson, they could also be decent looks, with Fulham having a 36% chance of a clean sheet. But it is looking more likely that there are going to be plenty of goals about this week. Obviously, City with the top numbers for projected goals. So obviously your likes of KDB, Marmoush definitely could be interesting options if you fancy them with the armband for this week. Obviously Brentford, everybody's probably going to be already owning Mbeumo, probably going to be a very highly owned captain as well. I imagine probably 120% plus effective ownership heading into this week. But Visser and Sharda could be nice options to go alongside him as well if you are looking for some serious rank gain as well. And then Nottingham Forest, I know they've been in a bit of an iffy patch and obviously one of the worst sides at the moment for XG conceded over the past 10 game weeks, but they are fancied here by the bookmakers for goals and, of course, for clean sheets. So maybe somebody like a Chris Wood potentially could be back on the menu. Obviously, if you've still got a Sells or maybe an Aina kicking about, they could also be pretty decent options heading into this game week. For me personally, I probably wouldn't look at any Tottenham or Manchester United assets either, with, of course, Champions League football being for them. And I think it's so difficult to call what is going to happen in that Liverpool-Arsenal game that I probably would prefer playing other alternative players over the likes of maybe like a Saliba this week, maybe a Raya, if you've got other options on the bench that you think could deliver. But I think it could definitely be worth going for. Obviously, Arsenal in the Champions League tonight. Liverpool, it does seem potentially having a little bit of a Premier League hangover. Now they are obviously confirmed champions for that one. In terms of my transfer targets, I've whittled it down to 2 players. Obviously, we've been discussing this throughout the course of this game week, and I have selected Visser and Cunha. The reason that I've ruled out Chris Wood as a potential option to go for me up front is just that recent form. I think, you know, he was massively overachieving on his underlying data throughout the course of this season. I think that's potentially caught up with him. It seems like he's kind of just hitting his mean right now, and I don't expect too many big returns from him in the next few weeks. I think Forest are really struggling at the moment as well, confidence-wise, and I do see them potentially slipping out of these Champions League places and starting to let it go, which would be a little bit disappointing considering they've been so good throughout the course of this year, but I think they've just lost a little bit of momentum. And I definitely think, for me, I probably don't want to be looking at a team that has lost momentum. I want to be looking at teams that have got decent momentum at the moment. And I think the fixtures that definitely can continue that and carry that. And that is definitely what Wolves and Brentford have got. More so Brentford within the past few weeks, in my personal opinion. Obviously, they're chasing down this European football. They've come flying through with some absolutely fantastic wins. They'll see these final few fixtures as all winnable games. They've still got something to play for. And that is why I want to go for that double up in attack with both Visser and Mbeumo. I think that is the way to go. Obviously, if you look at what these two players have done against the bottom three sides as well this season, they've been absolutely incredible. Double-digit hauls flying around. 2 blanks between them, between the bottom three sides within their fixtures, but both of them last time out against Ipswich didn't blank, which is what we love to see. So I think this could be an absolute slaughterfest. And like I said, if they go on, you know, to win this week, they put themselves in a really good position to qualify for European football next season. I think those Fulham and Wolves games are going to be massive for them. Both of those sides could potentially be on the beach as well, so it could be a real big kind of coup to get in Brentford assets. So I think Visser is leaning more towards the option, but it is Matheus Cunha who does keep pulling me back in a little bit. Of course, there is that appeal because he is such a bonus points monster on penalties as well, and the fixtures for him as well aren't too bad either. Like I said, though, the only concern for me is probably maybe Wolves are going to be on the beach. They're safe. They don't really have too much to play for. Matheus Cunha looks like he's probably going to be getting a contract out of the club as well within the summer. So maybe he's just going to just take his foot off the gas a little bit, go a little bit easy for the next few weeks because he's probably already got that United move sealed now. It maybe is just a case of just keeping himself fit, don't get any kind of long-term serious injuries that potentially could hamper that transfer move. So maybe he's just going to take his foot off the gas. Or maybe he could go the other way and end his Wolves career in kind of a high and really go out and smash it. But like I said, I'm definitely leaning more towards Visser in my personal opinion. I think that is the way that I am going to go with my transfer for this game week. Finally, let's take a look at captaincy. I think it is really split this week. Obviously, as on screen right now, we do have the Fantasy Football Hub predicted points for this game week. Salah's top, but I don't think he's going to be an option for me. We definitely saw Liverpool had that kind of post-Premier League hangover. Maybe they can kind of rectify that, against Arsenal, but I still don't see it for me personally, Salah as an option. I think this week it is definitely a week to go elsewhere. Whether that be Isak, whether that be Cunha, whether that be Visser, Marmoush, KDB and Mbeumo. There are so many good options. Chris Wood as well in there as a potential differential, as you can see. Very high up on these predicted points as well. There are so many good options. This is how I'm going to break it down for you. If you're in a decent position with rank, and you're happy with the rank that you've got, probably the position that I'm in, I'm pretty happy. I want to obviously consolidate, but I also want to, be a little bit aggressive. I probably would say I'd go for Mbeumo. I think he's probably going to be the most captained player this game week. He'll obviously do the business, in my personal opinion, against Ipswich. He's a flat track bully. He loves playing against bottom weak sides, and I definitely think it could be a massive scoop for him. So I think that is my option, and the option that I'm going to lean for, in my personal opinion. But of course, if maybe you're a little bit further back, the door definitely widens open, doesn't it? Obviously, Visser, if you wanted to go for that alternative attacker, he's been in such good form, as we saw from the last slide over the past 5 game weeks, has been absolutely smashing it out of the park. A 10-pointer against Ipswich as well earlier in the season, so he could be a fantastic option to go for. Chris Wood has been a bagsman all season. Leicester, we all know, have been terrible, and this is actually a local derby. There's something to play for, not only, in terms of Forest's Champions League qualification, there's the pride as well, potentially losing to to a local rival. So, you know, there's a lot on the line for Chris Wood. Could be another interesting differential, of course, on penalties as well. You imagine, as you saw from the betting data, that Forest are going to score a few against this weak Leicester side, but maybe is it kind of the pressure of Champions League football potentially going to take over. KDB could be a really good one against Southampton, already down, but recently their defensive numbers have improved, one of the most improved sides over the past 5 game weeks, so that may be one to potentially monitor. Marmoush, I think, rules himself out because there's rumours that Haaland is back and potentially might see some minutes, so I think that probably rules him out of an option for me. So to round up, Mbeumo is going to be my pick if you're happy with your rank and you feel comfortable for where you are this season. If you are miles back and want to chase, KDB, Wood, Visser, they're going to be my picks in terms of captaincy for this game week. But let me know in the comment section which way you are potentially swinging with your captaincy picks. Okay, wasting no time, let's dive into my team selection. Starting off first with our goalkeeper and defenders. And as you can see, I don't think my defence is in a pretty good place right now, but am I going to waste any transfers on that? Hell no. I'm going to just ride it out and hope for the best. As we saw with the betting data, clean sheets this week, look very, very sparse. I don't expect too many to be kind of kicking about, so maybe if we kind of just look it out with some of our defenders, maybe Everton snatch one, potentially maybe Crystal Palace get one with a leggy Tottenham after the Bodo Glimt game in Europe. Maybe that is going to be our luck this week. But overall, I'm not in a great kind of position with the defence, to be honest. There's nobody there that I really would like to have in. Gvardio's the only one that I feel pretty comfortable could get himself a clean sheet this week. However, we have seen in recent weeks that Southampton have become a little bit of a nuisance and have started scoring, you know, kind of 90th minute goals, or just kind of, you know, just getting that odd goal that just removes people's clean sheets, which is massively frustrating, of course, from an FPL perspective. They are denying us some massive points at the back line. So hopefully City can do the job. Their defensive numbers have definitely improved since Ruben Diaz has returned, which is exactly what we want to see. One of the top sides for predicted clean sheets on the Rob T FPL data as well. So he is probably our best chance of a clean sheet. Munoz, I feel comfortable, could get himself an attack in return. I don't feel overly confident in kind of Palace's defensive abilities, and obviously Spurs always seem to score in games, but how leggy are they going to be post Europa League game? We'll have to wait and see. Of course, maybe they rest and rotate as well following that, if they do make it to the final, with that, of course, being their biggest priority for this season. Raya and Areola, I could probably flip a coin. I might actually go for Areola. Of course, Manchester United in European football as well. So again, maybe potentially they do put out a rotated side, but West Ham have been one of the worst sides XG conceded wise for the course of this season, and Raya at least keeps me at bay with other people that do, of course, have Arsenal defenders within their back line. I think it is genuinely, again, a 50-50 split between Mikolenko and Konza. We might potentially flip the holy coin on the deadline stream to kind of decide which one we want to go for there, because honestly, both at 19% on Rob's metrics, I just don't see a way where either of these keep a clean sheet, to be honest. So we could end up with 6 points on the bench like we did last week, with, of course, Konza coming away with that. However, heading into our attacking line, I feel this is where things get a lot more brighter. Starting off first with Mohamed Salah, like I said, it is going to be a difficult fixture. I don't really know how to call this one. I think if obviously Arsenal do progress to the final of the Champions League, maybe there could be a little bit of a hangover for them, and maybe we are over kind of valuing the Arsenal defence a little bit, and maybe undervaluing Mohamed Salah as a pick for this week in terms of captaincy. As we saw in the last section, top 4 predicted points. He got a 10-pointer earlier in the season against Arsenal as well. So maybe he's one of those picks that's potentially going a little bit under the radar at the moment as a potential captain for this game week. But still, we've got him. He'll probably be 100% plus effective ownership yet again, as he's been pretty much throughout the course of this season. But having him in, I think it's just the way to play it, to be honest. He's one of those players that is still looking to hunt down some of these goal involvement records for the remainder of this season. And with Barca going out of the Champions League last night, does that potentially open the door back up for Mohamed Salah as well in terms of the Ballon d'Or? That means Rafinha is now out of that. That means that Yamal is out of that. So both of them are going to have a kind of league winner medal. It's who can just get the most goal involvements, probably. That could be the deciding factor over the remainder of this year. So Salah definitely would probably have that on his mind heading into the kind of final few games of the season. Bowen is 5 for 5 in the past few game weeks. A 9, a 10 and a 9 in his past 3 game weeks as well has been absolutely fantastic. Playing a Manchester United side post-Champions League, you all know why I love Jarrod Bowen. A man that is just a talisman, plays 90 minutes, and you can guarantee if West Ham are going to score, Jarrod Bowen is definitely going to have some sort of goal involvement with that. KDB, off the back of that big 11-pointer, really good projected goal numbers for Manchester City, the highest this week heading into the market. And I said this very bullishly last week in the deadline stream and in my team selection, that I think KDB is just going to play a lot of the remainder of the season, to be honest, because Pep doesn't care about him next season. He's gone. He's out of the picture. And I think KDB will also be pushing to play as many games for Manchester City as possible, with his time, of course, coming to an end at the club. Of course, though, they do have the FA Cup final next week, so maybe does see a potential early substitution. I've gone with Bryan Mbeumo as my captain. Like I said, a 15-pointer against Ipswich earlier in the season. He's been a flat-track bully against the bottom 3 sides this season. He's been doing really well, as well as have Brentford in recent weeks, and like I said, he just is going to be my number 1 captain pick for this game week if you're in a pretty decent position for rank. I imagine he's probably going to have the highest effective ownership, and I think it just does cover you off, and hopefully he can go and get a 15-pointer like he did earlier in the season. We do have Morgan Rogers on the bench, but I realistically don't see a place for him within this side, considering all the attacking talent that we do have, including our strikers, Marmoush, Visser, and Isak. Let's talk through Marmoush first. I think he definitely could be a player that could be a little bit of a problem this week. I still expect him to start ahead of Erling Haaland, but potentially we could see an early substitution. 0.17 expected goal involvement in his last game, which was really disappointing, especially for the people that did potentially gamble on the captaincy for him. He's not going to be a pick that I'm going to give the armband to this week. I just don't think the confidence is quite there. Like I spoke about as well, Southampton have improved, or been one of the most improved sides, should I say, in terms of the XG conceded column in recent game weeks as well. So that is a little bit of an issue, but I think we're still going to keep him. He's one of those players that is very, very highly owned, so I think it's just a safe bet just to keep him in the squad for now. Visser, like we spoke about, is going to be my transfer in for this week. Again, absolutely smashed it earlier in the season with a 10-pointer against Ipswich. Again, has an absolutely fantastic record against some of the bottom 3 sides, this season. Brentford, of course, are cruising themselves into European contention. These two as well have got 20+ goal involvements as well, which is absolutely ridiculous to consider for a mid-table Premier League side. Historically, should I say. Obviously, if they get European football, they're going to change that narrative around. And as you guys know, Brentford are one of my favourite teams to watch. They're really attacking, they're really aggressive, and usually if they're going to score, and Mbeumo or Visser definitely have some sort of goal contribution to go with that. And obviously, I know this might be quite a template kind of pick of going for Mbeumo and Visser, but I just want to say that sometimes I think people underestimate the power of combinations. Not everybody is going to have Visser and Mbeumo. People will probably have one or the other, yes. But having both, it probably lowers it down a little bit. Then you throw in maybe like a Kevin Schade. That is where it's kind of, you start to build up differentials. I think there's definitely something that we need to work on next season in reframing people's minds around what is a differential. Yes, it's a player under 10%. We all know that. But it's those combinations that I think we definitely need to focus on next season. That, the team might look very template, but realistically, how many people probably own KDB, Mbeumo, Bowen and Visser? There's probably not many people in the game that can say that. So that is where I think we need to focus our head a little bit more towards next season. Alexander Isak, let's finish off this squad. A big game for their Champions League qualification with Chelsea. Of course, Chelsea post Europa Conference League as well on Thursday, so it might be potentially a little bit tired, and that potentially could be the difference between Newcastle. Again, I expect his effective ownership to be plus 100. I don't think he's going to be a captaincy shout for me this week personally. I think there are just better players to be going for in my personal opinion. That is going to conclude today's video. Of course, if you did enjoy it, make sure you are liking, commenting and hitting that subscribe button, and thank you very much for watching today's video, and good luck in game week 36.